What's going on, my creative collective? Welcome to your creative unconscious reading for May 7th. We are going to dive right in here. Messages from our inner child, addressing our shadow, and anything that brings with it. So let's dive right in, shall we? So I would like to invite the angels, my guardian angels, my spirit guides, protectors, teachers, and their healing energy to this space. And I ask that it is a safe and brave space that allows for the fullest expression of our light, humanity, ascension, and healing. All right, so we're going to dive right in, and we're going to pull from the Tarot of Light and Shadow. I'll put a link in the description below if you want to check it out, if it resonates for you in terms of the deck. Spirit, what messages do you have for my creative unconscious collective here for May 7th? The moon. I'll show you that here so you can see it. The moon. There's some way that the processes you're undertaking right now to go inward and reflect, my darling creatives, my creative collective, I feel like it's quite related and connected to being protected at this time. The guardians of the pool here. So this is the sort of destroyer and creator energy here, this creature, according to the mythology that inspired the card. And it's almost like you're going into this sort of place within you that is a release, but also a creative place. And the beauty of this particular card is these are the Yamasu, which is Assyrian guardians. They typically get placed in front of the house. Or, they can be placed anywhere, but they are basically guardians of the home and guardians of the spaces that they are placed in front of. Sometimes folks will take these figures and you'll see it underneath house mats because they can't put it on the outside, like welcome mats, I should say. So it's like whatever process you're undertaking and diving deep within yourself to reflect right now, my creative unconscious collective, or my creative collective, I feel like there's a way that you are protected, even though it may feel like you're diving pretty deeply down. And the moon is Cancerian energy, but this is also Piscean energy. So I do get the impression that there's like a diving deep into our psyche here, whether it's a psyche or, the energy of us just diving deeply into understanding things that mean a great deal to us. Then we have the Eight of Swords. Yeah, there's some kind of mental block here. There is a mental block. Spirit, can you clarify this further for me, please, as we go through this spread? Nine of Cups. What's coming to mind here is a way, I think, of seeing yourself and seeing the ways that people have said that you may have been too broken or anything along those lines. Not too broken, but let me explain. So what came to mind while I was looking at this card was the mythology of the broken vase or the broken chalice, where it gets put back together and it's done so with gold paint, and it becomes a decorative part of the vessel that is broken. So there's something where there's like the breaking is not something, the breaking is like what gives you that ultimate fulfillment. Like what you thought was a sort of breaking here, right? Is actually where you're being put back together. Something is being put back together is what I'm getting here. Something is being put back together, but from the right state of mind. Eight of Swords, from the right state of mind. And the state of mind that isn't, I'm hearing webbed. It's not in a web of things. There's clarity here. So we have the Two of Cups. Yeah, something's being put back together, and I get that it's, and Two of Cups and Page of Swords, and then we have the Four of Swords. So there's some kind of healing that's taking place, and it's giving you clarity and the ability to move forward on something that you may have been unclear about, right? There may have been a lack of clarity. I think this has to do a bit with self-perception and a perception of what's possible for you in terms of happiness, but also I think fulfillment, emotional fulfillment in particular, wish fulfillment with the Nine of Cups. So I'm just going to set these here, and I'm going to use the traditional Rider Waite here to clarify the spread. Spirit, can you please clarify these details for me for my creative unconscious? I get the block coming in really strongly as this wish fulfillment. And it's not that the fulfillment of the wish is the problem. I get that it's almost like a perception of what's possible. A perception of what's possible. Which, like, we know that that's definitely our own, like, that's not someone's issue to take on for us, right? That's an us problem. And that's something that's important to keep in mind. And it's also just important boundaries if we're dealing with love and relationships and romance, that kind of thing. So we have Justice, Five of Cups, and Ace of Cups. So I see here that there's something that it's almost like you're correcting your perception regarding love. There's something you're correcting about the way that you're seeing the situation. You're remedying something about the heart space. And I get the impression here, this is also Libran energy. So this could have had to do with the Libra full moon, but more broadly speaking, I feel like there was an inner conflict where you weren't really able to accept cups in because there was a way that you were blocking yourself. I feel like this is becoming remedied now. It's almost like there was a view of long-termness to things, like long-termness. What am I saying here? Like less about commitment and more about believing that it was possible for someone to want to stick around long term and to not be like in like a flash and out, like, you know, in and out, just like dipping in and out, like Knight of Wands. Like that's the type of energy that you've been accustomed to encountering. And this is something that's balancing out for you right now. A lot of balance, I think, a lot of emotional healing as well. And I think this is what is going to facilitate some kind of expansion for you in the heart space. An expansion to include, I'm getting expansion to include, like to encompass, to embrace, like a lot of open arms from open hearts. And then so we have the Eight of Swords here, High Priestess. Whatever it is that this mindset is, I feel like there's a deep knowing. You know what this is. You're very aware. You're very understanding of, and I think you're also having a lot of a lot of compassion for yourself. Five of Swords. I think this is less about manipulation and more of you seeing yourself as like the lessons of loss, like seeing your experiences now through the lessons of loss and making peace with what you've learned, because there's something that your intuition has gained something. It is gaining something through these lessons that you're learning. And I think that you're giving yourself more wiggle room is what I'm hearing. Like you're giving yourself more room to breathe instead of believing like you have to have it all figured out the second that you step into anything. Yeah. Four of Swords again. These cards keep flipping out all over. Yeah, Knight of Swords. Knight of Swords, Six of Wands, and the Four of Swords. One thing I just want to point out here is that it's like what you thought you were holding. So you were holding on to these Three of Swords here. You were holding on to something like some kind of heartbreak or something, some kind of disappointment or betrayal. And then it really left you with these Two of Swords that you sort of cast aside, which is, you know, things that we do out of our better judgment. This is our awareness of consequences. This is our awareness of information and being able to weigh options from a place of clear perspective and thought, because we're hanging on too tightly to these Three Swords, right? So we're holding on to Three of Swords, right? We're holding on to the heartbreak and the disappointment, the betrayals. It means that we can't really make clear decisions. But I think this is something that is clearing up, and I feel like there is clarity coming. Six of Wands and the Four of Swords here tell me that there's profound healing taking place. And I think that you're also, this is like correctly viewing people as they are, right? That's what I see this victory as in this particular context. Because we're seeing things in the light of day, right? We're seeing things very clearly. This is everybody gathered together in the square, celebrating the return, celebrating victory. And I get like this to me is also where the hero of the story, I guess, I pose this character here, is I'm getting Mars energy on this. It's like returning from not a battle, but like returning from a journey. And I think the journey that you took was one that is within and really exploring what these expectations you had were, or exploring what meaning you wanted. Like, what is it that you wanted? And I think the great part here is that everyone's accepting responsibility for their own wand. So you only have one in hand, right? We're not at this burdened place. We're healing that energy, actually. We're healing that energy. And I think that there's a beautiful balance here between knowing when to charge ahead in the Knight of Swords energy and knowing when to rest in the Four of Swords energy. On the Knight of Cups, I have the Four of Wands, which I feel like this is like a healing of, commitment for you, my creative unconscious collective. And commitment can just mean commitment to work. Like, different generations at different times have felt, there's like the idea, and it's not even a generational thing, it's the times that we're living in, but generations have been emplaced into that. So I'm getting here the Wheel of Fortune, where I'm seeing this go. So the Wheel of Fortune, but let me just backstep to what I was talking about there. Different generations have had different expectations in terms of where they're supposed to be for a long period of time. In terms of work, this can be, a lot of, I'm a millennial, I'm an elder millennial, oh my gosh. But for my generation in particular, it's not uncommon for our pursuit of work to be meaningful, for us to seek out meaningful work as opposed to having a job with a particular company just because. There has to be a why that it fulfills. And that's also, I have so much 11th house energy in my signs, or, where my fire is in the 11th house, or, my air is there. So there's a lot of that for me, but I also recognize it as something that's just common for my generation, right? People say like, oh, that's non-committal energy when it comes to workplaces. Like, I've watched a lot of leaders and thought leaders who are from older generations talk about this, and it's such an interesting contrast because it was more about like time served is not loyalty, right? So I think that there's ways that we're taking this perspective and healing it related to work, and also the heart space too. And I think that this is like expanding in multiple ways because we're seeing that. We're seeing that there are ways that we did not feel like we could expand within, like that contracts restricted us. This isn't Saturnian energy, but I feel like this is you expanding outward. So it's almost like we felt like it. I'm getting this vibe that we felt that people could not possibly be committed because they would always change their mind. And I feel like it's an expansion into a different way of seeing things because of the Swords energy here and the moon, right? These things that, don't often get talked about. And I think that we're healing this Three of Swords in that Five of Swords. It's an interesting way for it to show up in this energy here. But I feel like the Five of Swords is a healing of that. And it's allowing you to make clearer decisions about the things that you really want, and not just the wishes fulfilled, because wishes like, I think about wishes fulfilled and like, what is, commitment mean, and all of these things like you're able to offer more of yourself because, you're not regarding offers with the same, it's like you're suspicious in a way, but there's like a suspicion where you're like, what does this person want from me? Right? What is this person, what are they going to expect from me? And not that you don't want to show up in that energy. From this, I'm just getting that it's like there was overgiving that kind of left you bruised and left you a little bruised, right? And this a lot of the time happens with projects, creative projects, with workplaces. And then that, the way that we do our relationships can inform the way that we do workplace stuff too, right? The way that we do things with businesses and projects and other work that fulfills us. And I feel like there was a lot of overgiving, but I feel like you're turning away from this and moving in a different direction that's a lot more healing for you, and it's forward movement. This is very much, stuck in that place of it's just stuck energy. It's stagnant energy. Whereas this, I'm getting this like moving forward, but doing it in a way that honors the time that you need, Because I do get the impression that there's healing taking place here. And like I have a lot of Aquarius in my chart, and People, it's almost like people take Aquarians, it's like, I don't want to say like the lowest common denominator of Aquarian energy is like non-committal and all of this stuff, but it's just like sometimes there's also to me this is also about communication, because it's an offer, right? Like there's got to be that piece of communicating, otherwise we're just operating on assumption, and this strikes me as very decidedly assumption. It's a lot of assumption energy, and to me it doesn't really, it's almost like there's a reason why we feel protective right now. There's a reason why we feel protective, because it's not about what we can't see, because I think that there's a clarity here, but I think it's also just that are we trusting the offers that are coming in, right? Are we trusting it? Not because we're marking it with, this is what happened in the past. We're not doing the comparison game, but this is a real honest take on if someone isn't committed to communication. I say that because of the swords. We have the Page of Swords, Four of Swords, Four of Swords, Knight of Swords, Five of Swords, Eight of Swords, and then Justice, right? So these are a lot of communicative energies in terms of thoughts and the way we put them into the world. And, the wands in particular are the actualization and communication through concretizing ideas in the world in an inspired way. That's, taking thoughts and putting them into something. And then we have this investment energy. So I'm getting that there's something about communication. It could be coming slowly, slower than you like. But I think it's important to honor the seasonality I'm hearing of things, the seasonality of things, the ways that things come in seasons. So we have the Two of Cups, the Page of Swords, and the Four of Swords. And I feel like we're healing our view of what is possible for love. And I'm seeing a lake that's melting. That just came to mind while I was looking at the Four of Swords. I'm seeing a lake that's melting with cracks on the ice. And when you can start to hear the ice beneath melt, and then like I've seen time lapses where it sounds like it's like space, like the Star Wars things on the like the, oh my god, the pew pew, this is so ridiculous. Anyways, I can't think of the name of it, but where it sounds like these weird things, and I've seen time lapses, and what's coming to mind is like a time lapse of a lake melting. 1717 on the time is like time lapse of a lake melting, and you're showing up in this Page of Swords energy where you're like, oh, I can actually have a full cup and empty it out into another, right? I can actually do those things. I can actually have that. And I feel like you're showing up in this page energy, which feels a little bit unsteady. Like I feel like you're used to showing up as like Temperance or the High Priestess. And this is like, you're showing up as a page and you're like, well, what the hell do I even have to offer? What do I have to offer? The answer is a lot. You do have a lot to offer. There's healing that you have to offer. And I think it's like the stories, because swords are stories, the stories of what happened while you were healing, right? The stories of what happened while you were healing. This could be some Chiron energy that I'm picking up on here in terms of working through this. And where the shadow work is concerned, Spirit, what messages do you have for my creative unconscious collective? I have, these cards are flipping quite a bit. The Hierophant and the King of Swords. Getting very clear about commitment. That's amazing energy. And I think when we think about getting clear about commitment, it's not just what we want to commit to, but it's also what's most important. I heard the word used before, and then I read it in a book recently called stick-to-itiveness. Stick-to-itiveness. And I've, a lot of ideas about commitment revolve around this idea of just this resistance to it. But I think this is like you diving into what it is and knowing too, because you can't show up with these cards like the High Priestess, the Wheel. These are things that are concluding and like a cycle completing, where you're now able to access what it is that you actually want, because you're seeing that it was, you won, but like at what cost, right? At what cost? Like, sure, 1919 on the time, you're healing patterns and all of this stuff, but like, is it healing patterns or what? And then you step into this beautiful, like, oh, that's what success actually is with this. That's what this means. And you're going into that shadow and healing it. And I get the impression here that it really does open up this brand new cycle for you, brand new cycle of opportunities, of, soul contracts, connections, work. And I think it's an expansive view that you have of yourself too. And rather than feel free, I think you're seeing things as, you're not really seeing things in the same burdensome way that you did before, right? I love, there's a quote that Glennon Doyle talks about with her wife Abby, and she talks about how she is both held and free. Held and free. And it's just that the sound of it is enough to bring you to like happy tears, right? Held, but also free, because you're not bound by, like, it's just, and I feel like the reason why communication, I think, is coming up so much here, again, apart from the swords, is we have justice and the high priestess, which is to me a communication of things happening in the 5D in a way that's balanced, right? Swords energy, Libran energy, that's seventh house, that is Venus energy as well. So it's communicating things that are important to us and that are here for the long haul, that are here for the long turn. And what does that mean for people, right? Because if you're used to like a lot of Knight of Swords, or a Knight of Swords, I should say Knight of Wands energy, where it's like in and out. If you're used to dealing with players, if you're used to dealing with just people who don't know what they want, and then assuming that knowing, like, it's like something that I've done as an empath in my 20s, was, I got into relationships where I confuse, like I would be like, oh, I'll help, I'll help, I'll help you with the things that you need help with in terms of figuring out what you want, because I thought that it was more connected to some kind of like helping to heal people, but that's not why we get into relationships, right? That's not what relationships are for. So it's like we get into this place of overgiving, and then we find ourselves drained, and then we think to ourselves, well, what the heck was that even for? And if you do that cycle enough, it will make it hard for you to see what commitment actually is, right? It'll make that really difficult, so that when it shows up on your doorstep, you question it and you question it and you question it and you question it. And the Gemini in my chart, I get the like needing to know things from all these different sides. And sometimes that can run into intellectualizing things that just don't, they can't be understood intellectually, right? They just can't be understood intellectually because they're an Ace of Cups. They're not an Ace of Swords. I mean, the King of Swords is here. So I think there's something we're gaining clarity about what it means to be connected to and committed to something in a long-term view that is also life-giving. 2222 was on the time. So I think this is like, end of a cycle, but this is the new, right? So this is where we're moving through these things. And, this is, I think, more of a reminder, like if there's work that you haven't done around this, it's almost like just polishing up the silver. I don't know why that came to mind. I do not have silver. But anyway, so it's like that, like polishing up silver, right? So that we can see, and it's our work reflects, like the results of our work are reflected, as opposed to like the tinge that comes from not doing the work for too long, right? Spirit, what other messages do you have on this King of Swords, please? And thank you so much. The Chariot, which I feel like this is you moving forward. I think this is you moving forward, because you're not really, the confusion wasn't about whether or not you wanted to commit to something. I think the confusion here from my creative unconscious collective is, the confusion might have been, is it going to just be like all of the last times, or is this going to be something new? How do I do this? What does this look like? I think there was a lot of confusion on your part. Yeah, Two of Pentacles, a lot of confusion, because it's not that you were, it's, the Two of Pentacles here is that you have things to invest in, and you understand that, but I almost get that there's like trying to find the best emotional course of action, because I see the waves here like going a little bit ham in the background. So I feel like there's this kind of uncertainty, and there are a lot of reasons for confusion about commitment and all of that jazz, and what that means. It's not just vulnerability. Like it's also about those first steps of like, will people see you or commit to seeing you in the way that you are, or will they try to change you over time? Will they do all these things? And it's like, are people showing up authentically and honestly? But the reality is we can't control that. We can't control other people. We can only control ourselves, right? So we have to show up authentically, and we have to show up in a way that communicates expectations and concerns and all of that. And that's it's so easy for us to get into this like fantasy space of, Neptune, idealization and, looking to others for, it's almost like we get into this fantasy space where we see what's possible and then we stay there instead of sinking into the communication of it and grounding it in something tangible that takes us out of that space, because that's where we get into this almost tension, right? That's where we're torn between what we're thinking about and what could actually possibly be, because we're not really bridging that with something that makes it real. We're not bridging it with something that makes it real. But I think this isn't just about like, here's a lesson that you're learning. I think this is because there are things here for you, my creative unconscious. I feel like there are opportunities coming. There are no aces as yet, but I feel like it's on its way. And I feel like the High Priestess is here because you're aware of this energy. You're aware of it. King of Pentacles. Yeah. King of Pentacles. And then we also have the Moon and the Nine of Cups showing up on the split. Because I feel like there's, again, like this is like you're reinvesting in what's most important to you. You're reinvesting in that. And it's not even, it's like this is why retrograde energy is so powerful and helpful. And then there's the Two of Cups on the bottom. Yeah. It's like we're investing and reinvesting in, we're revisiting what's most important to us, working through the challenges that we have about believing in what's possible. The wheel is also Piscean energy. So it can be like the ways that we get caught up in this idealization. And that certainly has burned us, right? That's burned us before. The Nine of Wands, that's burned us. So it's about making something concrete. This is slow, intentional action that is based in something that's truly important to you, right? And it's important because the minute that you start to take it from this idealization and from this like hopeful, wishful thinking place, it's like, because if you don't want to do it, if you don't want to take it to that place, then it's, you start to understand things when you think about concrete ways, like what would I actually say to somebody? What would I actually do? Right. And it's not under the expectation or assumption. This is another space that I'm trying to navigate, even as a trans person, like what assumptions and expectations there are for men in terms of communication and things like that. And I'm trying to, navigate all of that amidst other things going on internally. So it's an interesting, assumptions are so interesting to me right now because I see them in so many ways that differ, like how many more expectations there were for me pre-transition than now, especially in public spaces and all of that jazz. So it's the Gemini, like looking at things and doing the intellectual take. But I think this is an excellent energy because it's like doing the shadow work, but this is almost like spirit kind of cheering you on and saying like, you're almost there, like 3 feet from gold. That Napoleon Hill quote or story book, that kind of thing. Yeah. And the sun came out on the bottom. I feel like this is indicative of the shadow work you're doing. And if anything, I feel like spirit wants you to remember that it's worth it because there are things, and it's not worth it as in like, I need to get the cookie when I put the quarter in the machine. Like I want to get the gumball. Like that's how we do this. No. 2828 on the time. I feel like this is just a reminder of, the work that you're doing is paying off and it's changing you in a big way. And I think that I was looking at the Nine of Cups and I just got this image of like, it's almost like you didn't know how good it could be. And it made you nervous to think of it being that good, right? Like for a long time when I started transitioning, I didn't trust that people would just want to be with me. I didn't know how to trust that people would just want a trans person. Right, which is really like, bare bones of it, like getting all vulnerable. I feel awkward talking about it, but it's important, right? Like, what are the things that you think and that you believe that people couldn't possibly get past about you? And that's the place to go and to really sit with and hold, and to really hold that part of you, to really hold space for that part of you, and to love that part of you, right? Because that is the place where you might feel hesitation about letting other people in. That's where you might feel hesitation about what's possible. That's where you might feel nervous about these like new things coming in, right? Because I'm seeing there's a lot of work that you're doing. There's a lot of work that you're doing. But again, like there's no cards to tell me that the outcome is bad, right? Like certainly getting clarity, moving through some hesitation and uncertainty, but then, we go into this beautiful space of King of Pentacles, Two of Cups, and the Sun. Like, wow, this is the energy. We go from the Moon, the Justice, and the Five of Cups into this absolutely stunning example of committed energy and committed energy that's not just that doesn't heal you. It's not that you're not looking for the healing in the thing itself. This is just healing, period. So I think that's something to hang on to, my creative unconscious collective. So I'm going to pull from the, I'm going to do the chakra deck. That makes sense. All right, Spirit, what messages do you have for my creative collective relative to this message for Saturday, May 7th? Thank you so much. Individuation. I recognize others as different aspects of consciousness, no greater or lesser than myself, all journeying at our own pace. I acknowledge, accept, and celebrate difference as I go inward to connect with my deepest self, my truth, desires, and joy. I am a unique spark of the divine, expressing my own unique vibration and life purpose. I follow my own path. I feel like this could also be like a healing of, like family history as well. Like, I'm getting that somewhat strongly. I follow my own path. Yeah. I feel like it's not about like busting out on your own and doing it in a way that's like, screw everyone. It's not like that kind of shadow energy, because then we're not really moving forward. We're just sitting in the shadow yelling about it and doing that to boast ourselves and to fill ourselves up with, to boast about ourselves and fill ourselves up on pride instead of filling ourselves up with meaning and love, like true heart energy. The moon. My ears ringing quite loudly. Ooh. We are all children of conditioning. So this is just the general throat chakra energy here. We are all children of conditioning. Let go of the oughts, shoulds, and judgments that inhibit you. Speak wisely, speak gently, speak consciously, but find your truth and express yourself. What you have to say is important. You are an expression of the divine. I think this is excellent energy. Now, something I had to sit with for a minute. Now, I wore my blue today. They say I don't know. I was reminded because I saw it in another reader's thing, and I was like, oh, I really like that blue. Oh, I love that. I was like, yes, I'm going to wear that this week. At some point, I was inspired because I realized that it's like drawing the energy and calling on the energy of the throat chakra, because we can get into places where misunderstandings happen. And Mercury retrograde. Wow. I mean, some people might say it as a retrograde, because anyways, but like Mercury retrograde is about understanding and communication, which is entirely in the realm of the throat chakra. So if there are miscommunications happening, sometimes it can indicate that there may be truths that we're not speaking, or truths that we hold that we're trying to be unaware of, or things like that. And for me, it was just about recognizing like, oh, if there's misunderstandings happening, sometimes 3333 on the time, sometimes that can be the result of these different energetic imbalances. So I was trying to channel that, and I've got my blue on. But I think this could be, for me, this is a healing of and a speaking out on expectations that we've had, and things that can just go awry when we're not communicating. Things that can go awry when we're not communicating, right? Like, it wasn't until, for example, I started talking about, the real fears that I had about, like, will somebody be able to love a trans person's body? Right? Which sounds so ridiculous. And, this reading is not about me, but to use that example, until I started talking to people about it, and until I started to understand that by vocalizing things out. And this could be, your process could be completely different, right? It could be completely different. But, what what I'm getting here is that it's like finding different ways to visualize the outcomes and communicating on those things. Maybe I'm trying to articulate how I'm seeing it, but the way that we communicate has different threads, and it connects us to different possibilities. And I think that the possibilities that we need to connect to here are the ones that will help us to expand in our sense of commitment to ourselves and the things that are most important to us. Um, mhm. And I think this is also about expressing yourself as an extension of the divine too, right? Like this one here, which is I am a unique spark of the divine expressing my own vibration and life purpose. So I feel like this is about us getting into that place of I think this is about us getting into that place of expressing ourselves and understanding that it's all of these lessons are in service to our higher purpose, right? In service to our higher purpose. So, yeah. It wasn't until I talked about the issues and questions that I had about, like about body and things like that with other people. It didn't even need to be experts. It was just taking it and putting it outside of me so that I could see it objectively, so that I could see it for what it was, as opposed to letting it live wedged inside my energy centers where I couldn't really see it clearly. I could only feel it profoundly. So it was about communicating these things outward. And this is where journaling is so helpful for me. And I highly recommend it, because when we take these things and put them outside of us, then we can really see the energy of it. We can see the energy of it and meet ourselves as well, right? And if you are a trans person watching and you are wondering, I haven't had the opportunity to test that assumption yet, but I can tell you with certainty that there will be people that do want that aren't put off by your transness and in fact are enlivened by it and love you for it. So this is stuff that my friends have been teaching me. So, which I feel like, yeah, friends are everything. Whoa. I just wanted to say that because I know it's a bit of a universal experience for trans folks. Unity. I see the unity and harmony within the polarities that I am experiencing and choose to align with the center point of balance, harmony, and love for one and all. I open to seeing with fresh eyes a more balanced perspective. The truth of this matter lies between the polarities within which I am resonating. And that's this commitment and reestablishing our sense of boundaries within and around commitment and understanding what it means for us, right? So this is like bringing together these disparate parts that were sort of floating around in the ether, and then bringing that together in a way that allows you to move forward with, a pentacle for someone, or to accept this from someone, right? So this is beautiful energy. Peace of mind. Yeah, I got the impression that this whatever relationship is coming next for you, my creative unconscious, whatever project or opportunity, I feel like it's going to give you a sense of the situation itself. We cannot rely on to create the inner condition of peace. But what I think here is this peace of mind card to me comes across as this situation giving you have a peace of mind about it. Because I think that you've sifted through and sorted through what you need to in order to move towards some kind of real happiness with others, be this relationships, work, contracts, however we look at this, there's a happiness that we're moving towards. And I think that there's this no regrets and no fear energy coming from it. So peace of mind. Peace of mind. I heal the poisons of my mind. That's the 8 of Swords that was under here, right? So I heal the poisons of my mind that limit and deny me by aligning with pure and honest thought and belief. I joyfully recognize when I am thinking limiting thoughts from my conditioning and realign with thoughts and beliefs that serve my growth and well-being. I choose to question my perspective and think loving, supportive thoughts. Yeah. So it's almost like this reminder, right? Like reminding yourself. And this is also this is the third eye chakra. So this is like seeing from a higher perspective, right? Seeing from a higher perspective, King of Swords and the Hierophant, this clarity, this what it is that this perspective is teaching you that brings that sense of clarity to things for you. Okay, so I am going to pull from the Notes from the Universe on Love and Connection deck by Mike Dooley. Forgive on the bottom. I feel like this is a crucial part, and it's not necessarily about forgiving people. I think that when we sit in the energy of forgiveness and have that as a part of our heart space that doesn't just come with conditions or, and not conditions as in conditions we impose, but conditions as in external circumstances that call upon it. So when we don't need to call upon this forgiveness energy, and it's just there, it's sort of a byproduct of a healed heart. Interesting. Okay, so of course, anger can always be justified, but then so can forgiveness. Just depends on how much more you want from the adventure. Go for gobs, the universe. And Spirit, what other messages can you offer to my creative unconscious to close out this reading? Both? No. See me in their eyes. See me in their eyes. Whenever conferring with another, either face-to-face or across the miles, whether a human being, departed spirit, or sentient tree, always speak to the highest within them. It makes such a difference. So this is about, I think, forgiving ourselves, forgiving others, and understanding how to encompass and bring that energy into the heart space, while then moving forward through the almost remedied perspective where we're seeing people and things as spirit sees them, as opposed to the ways that we have encountered them. So I think that's going to be very profoundly healing for you right now. I'm going to pull from the Miracles Now deck. So, I didn't even, okay. And there's exactly two. The qualities I dislike in others are disowned parts of my shadow, which is an excellent call to go into our shadow through work like this. And it's probably just a reminder too, like relationships are places where we understand ourselves and where we learn about ourselves so much more. And as the heart space heals and as we keep it open as well, this is, we don't just open it once and then it's done, right? There are different ways where we have to process and continue to do this shadow work in order to keep the heart space open so that it doesn't start to contract again and build up. It just gets this like film on it, right? I think about the winter and driving and how like in slushy conditions and all of that stuff, the backup camera, the rear view camera, unless you wipe it every so often, it's just you can't see out of it. You can't see out of it. So it's almost like that kind of perspective where the shadow work, this is just a reminder that the shadow work that we do on a regular basis, it's not just something we do like one time and then it's done. This is a continuous process, and we do it not because we must do the work, we're obligated to it. We do it because we love other people. We love people in our lives and we love ourselves, and we want to make sure that we are living from our highest self and also treating those people with the highest regard by keeping our heart space open, because I feel like that's one of the subtlest and quietest ways that we can profoundly love other people, is by making sure that when we show up to relationships, we show up in ways that are full, and we show up in ways that are complete, and where we know what we want, where we're sure, where we don't have to play games and try and figure things out. We can just say what we need to say and be in that profound sense of truth, 4343 on the time, for that person too, right? So happiness is a choice I make. Exactly. That's really what that is, right? It's the choice. So, my Creative Unconscious Collective, this is your reading for Saturday, March Saturday, May 7th. And I hope that this resonated. If it did, please like and subscribe. It helps me to continue to grow the channel. There are other ways you can connect with me on here, but if this is where we part, I wish you a wonderful weekend ahead. And I'm very encouraged by what I'm seeing here. I think there's a lot of good work that you're doing. So if no one's told you lately, I'm proud of you. To the few viewers that are building on this channel, thank you so much. And just know that I'm rooting for you. I'm cheering you on. So, all right. Have a wonderful morning, afternoon, or night, wherever this finds you on the time-space continuum. I hope that it finds you wrapped up in so much love. Take care, my darlings.